Hello and welcome to a grizzly story on the edge. So, what we have today is the Benchmade Grizzly Creek, part of the Benchmade Hunt series. Lean across there and get that. There's something about that box that might hint at that. Right, let's get that out of the way. So, a knife that is clearly designed and targeted towards hunters. I'm not a hunter, so I'm not going to be looking at this knife from a hunter's eyes. I know there's people that believes that it's probably humans that deserve to be hunted. Anyway, that's a story for another day. Right, so I'm going to do the usual. Let's get this knife open in front of you. The usual story, materials, dimensions, and then the design and attributes, and my take on the knife. So let's get right into materials. We've got a blade steel of a CPM S30V. Handle is stabilized wood, and basically what that means is it's a wood that's been impregnated with phenolic resin. And apparently, when the resin, when the wood is still in its blank form before it's been shaped, they inject the resin or impregnate the wood with resin, whatever that process is, and that displaces air pockets, creating a very dense blank that is easy to shape and apparently nearly impervious to moisture changes. So it makes it excellent for knife making because of that strength and stability of the wood. Right. So the clip is stainless steel. We've got stainless steel liners, stainless steel Torx screws the hard way around the knife, and then we have a pivot of bronze washers. I think that covers all the materials. Right, let's charge through the dimensions. Blade length, we've got 8.89 centimeters or 3.5 inches. Blade thickness is 3.15 millimeters or 0.124 inches. Handle thickness is 4.22 millimeters or 0.56 inches. Closed length is 11.02 centimeters or 4.34 inches. And then overall length is 19.91 centimeters or 7.84 inches. Right, let's have a look. Knife doesn't feel very heavy for the size, well, so my brain tells me. But let's confirm those weights quickly. I do have the weights as stated on Benchmade site. Right, let's get that on. It's nicely lined up and level. Go on. Right, we're on grams. Let's have a look. See, so 123 grams. So that's quite a bit off from their stated weights. So Benchmade stated weights are 134.94 grams as opposed to 123 grams. Quite a bit lighter. And my scale, I've mentioned before, is pretty much on par with WE Knives, their stated weights on their website. So let's just check that in ounces. 4.4 ounces as opposed to their stated 4.76 ounces. Right, so quite a bit lighter actually than the stated weight, as I just said. Okay, let's have a look at the design of the knife a little bit. So, blade, we have a classic drop point blade. A little bit of a recurve. I've mentioned before, don't really like a recurve, not from an aesthetic perspective, and obviously it makes the job of sharpening the blade or resharpening the blade a little bit harder. But I understand that it does make it apparently better for drawing cuts or draw cuts, however you say that. And I suppose that would be appropriate for the intended use of this knife. The finish on the blade is stonewash. And then on that sort of extension of the ricasso running around the back, it's not a swedge. If I get the knife at the right angle there, you can see the little grind lines. It is attractive running along the back. So that almost gives it a bit of a satin finish. But at other angles, you can see that that's also been stonewashed. We've got two areas of jimping on the blade. So we've got the jimping just above the thumb stud, just forward of the handle, and then you've got the jimping right in the front of the blade. I'll speak a little bit about that jimping there a little bit later. So this jimping, well, let's just have a look at that before I turn the blade, the knife, and get it in my hand. We've got a sharpening choil, quite a big sharpening choil, but you can see it's partially hidden by the handle. It runs into the back of the handle where it joins the tang of the blade, but big enough to assist with sharpening. Right, in hand, so I mentioned that jimping. You can see the thumb very, very comfortably and naturally falls into that area, so you get good purchase on the knife if you are doing heavy tasks. And then while I've got it in that position, let's have a look at the size of the handle. My medium-sized hands, I've mentioned before, I wear a large glove, and you can see plenty of space on that handle. Bigger hands you're going to get on there as well, and really bigger hands you might stray towards the back, but you probably do on any knife anyway. Right, have I covered everything on the blade? I think I have. Edge, sharpish, not the sharpest edge I've ever seen, not getting clean cuts on paper, and it is a little bit rough, but it is even, so, you know, easy enough to touch up that blade. Well, I say easy enough, obviously we got the little recurve to contend with. Right, the handle, I mentioned the fact that that is the reconstituted, not reconstituted, let's try that again, the stabilized wood, and attractive. You know, it gives the knife a little bit of a warm and organic feel, and you've got to please all the senses. Sniffing the knife, how often do you sniff a knife? But it has got that, it has still got that wood smell to it, which is quite nice, and it's quite attractive. This wood quite a bit darker than the knife on Benchmade's site, and I actually quite like this darker version, and you can see the little bit of lighter grain coming through on that, but very attractive. I really do, I like the look of that. In terms of the shape of the handle, quite a sort of squared off look, but handsome because of that. You've got this shaping around there, beveled edge, slightly concave, so you get the curve running inwards. Along the front of the handle, you've got that little bit of shaping for the front finger, and no beveling around the rest of it, but a little bit rounded, but the general shape you kind of see. It's not, there's no sharp edges on that handle, so it is very, very comfortable in hand. And then we've got this big back spacer with this very sort of blocky type pattern on it that, to my eye, looks like cogs of a teeth, I should say, of a cog. Yeah, attractive. I like the look of that. It's in keeping with the manliness, no, aesthetic of the knife. And then this is a knife, and I reviewed a knife very recently that was more for first responders that had a similar thing. So in this case, that is described as a Guthook. Looks very similar to the belt cutter on that other knife that I looked at, and I will see this because I'm not a hunter. I will see that as, if I had to buy this knife, as a belt cutter. It is pretty sharp, and I think it would do that job rather well. Right, so now I can speak about that jimping that is open it like that, so you can see that's towards the tip of the blade. When that is in the closed position, you can now see how that makes sense, because if you're going to be using that Guthook / belt cutter, that is where your thumb would fall. So you'd make use of that jimping, and then you've got the jimping in the front when you're using the knife in that way. And if you flip it around for some reason, you're wanting to use it that way, the same thing. So your thumb falls onto that jimping, and then your forefinger onto the jimping that is towards the tip of that blade. So yeah, that's been well thought through. Right, while we're in that position, so that's a slip joint, by the way, for that Guthook, and this is, I didn't mention that from materials perspective, so this is apparently 440C as opposed to the S30V on the main blade. So that is now mentioned on a slip joint, so it does click into place in the open position, and then when you close it, you'll hear a little bit of a detent there too, but it doesn't lock into place. And that, while we're about it, that I was sort of, you know, turning and bouncing the knife around in my hand, and kept on hearing something a little loose on the knife, and couldn't quite figure out what it was. And see if I can get this. Hopefully that's coming across on my mic. But I heard that sound happening, and couldn't figure it out. And then looking around the knife, I saw that it actually is that Guthook. And if I get the knife at that angle, you might see there that is quite loose in there from a side to side movement. And what's happening is that rattling sound is where that is knocking, you can see it there, against the back spacer. So that's not tight. That would probably irritate me a little bit. But you know, I suppose if you're buying this knife for a hard use knife, maybe that won't bother you that much. But that was interesting. And then at the same time, while I was now looking at that, and I was looking at the construction inside, and I mentioned the stainless steel liners, but you can see that stainless steel liner on the inside has been cut back quite a bit, obviously to accommodate the belt cutter, Guthook. I think I'm just going to refer to it now as a belt cutter. I know it is a Guthook, but how I would use the knife. But having a look at that wooden scale, and you can see the thickness of the wooden scale on that side, and you can see there as well as it's getting thicker, and then it's cut all the way back to accommodate that Guthook. But that wooden scale on that area is very, very, very thin, and that looks a little sort of precarious to me. I don't want to push it too hard. I don't own the knife, and I don't want to crack that and then have to buy it. But it looks a little, yeah, like I say, it looks a little vulnerable to me. Now, you know, I was holding it in my hand to see if you'd really put that much pressure on the knife, and you probably won't. There's no way that you would hold that you would break it with, and I'm putting pressure on it there as a lefty either. But it still does just look a little vulnerable to me to cracking eventually, or breaking or something. So anyway, I've haven't got no experience in that happening. I haven't heard of it happening, but yeah, just worth noting. Right, anything else on that? No. Pocket clip, we've got the very usually shaped Benchmade pocket clip. You can get replacements for those, and you can see the way that is attached to the handle. So it is tip up carry. It's not reversible, and it's not deep pocket carry. But again, it's not a knife that's been designed, I suppose, for discrete EDC. It meets its intended use, I suppose, from a design perspective. Axis lock, as per usual, for a Benchmade knife. And should I try it? I've always mentioned the fact that is fun when you get it right. So you pull back on those two tabs, and it's there's a little slot in there on the tang. There's plenty of videos showing how the axis lock works if you want to search that on YouTube. But basically, you pull back on those tabs, and then let's get this, and then you can flip the knife. So that's one way of deploying it. Just pull back on the tabs. Oh man, like that. There we go. And or you can obviously just flick him out with the thumb, like you do any normal thumb opening knife, I guess, or just roll it out. But the only way of closing it, so there's several ways of opening the knife. The only way of closing it is you have to pull back on those tabs. That's what releases the lock, and then close the knife like that. There we go. Right. Is there anything else that I need to say about the knife? Quick glance at the notes. I think that I've pretty much covered everything on the knife. There is, but a good-looking knife. I think the size, it would make a good EDC. If you're not going to be using it for its intended purpose, and an attractive knife. I just, that little bit of a rattliness at the back. Not particularly fond of that, obviously. Worth noting as well is, if you look, just get it at that angle, there's a little bit of material removable on the liner. You can see it just cut away there in a couple of spots, little round machined holes, just to make it a little bit lighter. And I guess that's that, guys. I need to just once again thank Blades and Triggers. Appreciate their support. Another knife that's been supplied to them, to the channel, by them, to the channel, for me to mess around with for a few days and give my impressions. I really do appreciate the support of Blades and Triggers. So this and other Benchmade knives and a whole bunch of other knives available on from Blades and Triggers. So check out their website, BNT Online. And then I guess now all that's left to do is a little bit of a size comparison. And let's see, what do we have here? So I've got the usuals. I've got my usuals, that is. Spyderco Manix 2. Let's get that open. And that is what that looks like. A little bit slightly shorter. Again, the perspective that I'm at distorts it slightly, but it is a little bit shorter than the Manix 2. What else do I have? Benchmade, the usual ones that I use, not Benchmade. Ooh, it's not the first time that I've called that a Benchmade. That's a Medford Slim Midi Marauder. Very, very similarly sized knives. So if you look at it square on without the perspective, those are almost identical in length. The Midi Marauder a little bit thinner, and I think probably around the same weight. Right, what else have we got? We've got the other one, again, been out forever and a day. The Benchmade Mini Barrage. Right, little size perspective on that. And another knife that I think is sort of was designed as a hunting / EDC type knife. Now this is the small version of it, but this is the Benchmade Bone Collector. So another little bit of a throwback. I've used that in another review as a size comparison. But this is the small, as I say, small Bone Collector. And I thought it was going to be considerably smaller. I'm going to change the perspective because this will help my observation a little bit, give me the benefit. I thought it was going to be considerably smaller than this knife, and it actually isn't. It is shorter, but you know, the full size one of this would, I think, be a little bit bigger than the Grizzly Creek. Right, but there's that as well. And then I brought out another hunting knife. Well, hunting type knife, I suppose. And this is a Fox product. It is the Pro Hunter FX 130. Interesting to look at. So a different take, I suppose, on the hunting knife, an altogether bigger knife, but also wood construction. And I don't think that this, if you feel it, it doesn't seem to be the what did I say, stabilized wood. But anyway, there you go. Another take on the hunting type folder. I say I will rather use it to hunt the two-legged upright animal. Okay, that's a discussion for another day. Right, there it is. Let's get that out the way. It's actually quite a handsome looking knife, this Fox. Nicely made as well. Right, get that out the way, and oh well, I may as well, because it's also got a little bit of wood on and it's on the table. There we go. There's the little Benchmade Saibu. Those kind of look like they could be from the same family-ish. You know, the handle shape quite the same. We've got the little Coca-Cola inserts on there. Right, that just simply because it was lying there. Guys, and I think that's it. A little bit of a waffle today. But there it is, also a nice knife. I don't think that I would lay out money for it. I think for the price of this knife, there's probably other knives that I would find more compelling, but this might appeal to you. It is a good looker and is still available. It's been out for a while. It was, I believe, introduced around 2014. That's when the Hunt series was released. Benchmade released that series. Guys, and I think that's it. All that's really left for me to say is I really do appreciate you popping in. I appreciate your time. I appreciate sharing your time with me. And as I always say, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and hit that bell icon so you can be informed every time I release a new video. Because as I always say, I really would love you to join me more often. And other than that, you go well and God bless.